All right. Well, without further ado, we will get started. So excited to be welcoming everyone out there to Rethinking Athletic Success Beyond the D1 or Bust Mentality. My name is Courtney Ricard. I am our Director of Academics and Compliance here at Honest Game. And I am excited to be alongside two very esteemed coaches here, one from the NAIA level and one from the junior college level, so that we can really have like a little fireside chat about experiences outside of the Division I mentality and outside of those experiences. So as you are listening today and you're hearing some great tidbits, feel free to pop some questions into the chat and we can definitely answer those at the end. Make sure that we're covering all the topics and the questions that you want. So I'm just going to get started a little bit about what we're talking about today. And that is going to be this Division I or bust mentality. And so it's important, I think, to realize and to know from my professional experience, I did not know about any experiences beyond the Division I experiences. So I grew up a big time college fan, go Marquette. We had season tickets. I grew up watching big time college basketball, very excited. It was constantly in my house. That's how I chose the college I attended. I went to Seton Hall in the Big East Conference, rival, and had a great experience there as a student. But for an easy $6 an hour, I tutored in the athletic department. That's how I got started in the athletics administration space. So I thought it was just a campus job. I would go to the athletic department every day and I would experience and kind of watch all of my friends or student athletes that I was tutoring and how busy their day was. They needed to cram in study hall and tutoring in between practice games, travel, all of these things. And I thought, wow, like that's their job. My job is to go and tutor, and their job seemed to be being a student athlete. But that's where I started my professional experience. I ended up staying at Seton Hall, working in their athletic department. And then I transitioned over to the mid-major Division I experience. So I worked at Stony Brook University, which was formerly in the America East Conference. Now it's in the CAA. And I got to experience mid-major Division I athletics. A little different, but still lots of going on there and student athletes really having that job. I worked there and for about 20 years until I came to Honest Game. And admittedly, coming to Honest Game, that's where I learned about all of the experiences in college athletics outside of Division I. And from that day that I joined Honest Game 3 years ago, I love to talk about what's out there to high school students, their parents, their families, coaches, high school counselors that really don't know about all of the opportunities that students have available. And I show this slide, and I'm going to start the conversation today with a very, very important picture. And as you can see, this is a great grid that I would throw out there to everybody that's listening. People think just that Division I mentality, right? That there's those 350 schools that are NCAA Division I, and that's the experiences that we're offering or we're talking about mostly to our high school students, when that's not the case. There are 6 platforms to play collegiate sports, 6 ways to continue the sport that those students love, to get an amazing education, to graduate, go on in life beyond sports. And I think this is really impactful for those that are on the call today, because there are so many schools sponsoring so many sports, giving opportunities to so many student athletes. And that row at the bottom, I think, is also really key, that there are athletic opportunities that can give aid. There are places that your students can go and get some funding to assist them to go to college that you might not know about. And so this is really, once I joined Honest Game and I'm starting to talk about these opportunities, I said, this is a great webinar. We're so happy for the NIAAA, specifically Becky Moran, for helping us and co-sponsoring this, so we can really just continue the education as we move forward. So I am going to, before I introduce our guests, I want to also point out that, as we're talking about these high school students, there are 8 million high school student athletes vying for these spots, right? When in reality, only about 2.3% of them end up at Division I level. And so meeting Coach DeGraw, meeting Coach Albert today to speak on behalf of other NAIA colleges, other junior colleges, that's going to be really important. So I'm going to read their bios because they are very impressive and I don't want to miss anything. So we are first welcoming Coach Jeff DeGraw, head men's and women's track and field coach at Joliet Junior College. Coach DeGraw has more than 30 years of collegiate cross country and track and field experience, having coached at the junior college NCAA Division II and Division III levels. Having captured numerous national championships at the JUCO and NCAA Division II and III levels, Coach DeGraw was named NCAA Division III Men's Coach of the Year by the U.S. Track and Field and Cross Country Coaches Association, as well as the NCAA Division II Track and Field National Coach of the Year twice. So huge welcome to Coach DeGraw.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We also have Coach Ted Albert, head men's basketball coach at Indiana Tech. Coach Albert enters his 7th season at the helm of the Indiana Tech men's basketball program, having led its team to the 2023 NAIA National Championship game. In addition to his coaching duties, Coach Albert serves as the Champions of Character Liaison to the NAIA. So welcome, Coach Albert.
Thank you. Not quite as long a list there, but thank you.
Impressive for both of you, that's for sure. And also just a thank you too. I know you're both in season, so there's a lot going on. So to take an hour of your day today, we really appreciate it here at Honest Game. And I'm excited to get to know you a little bit better. So to start off, I think, I'm married to a college coach, so I can talk about this. I think there is a very special place for you both to be college coaches, to choose this as your passion, to really influence young men and women every day. I think it's a huge gift to be a college coach. It's an honor, and obviously you two are just crushing it in your roles. So just to get started a little bit, Coach DeGraw, what got you into coaching? What started your path?
Well, I grew up, my dad was a sports editor, and he was in the newspaper business for 50 some years. And I started going to athletic events from the time I could walk. I grew up in Ohio, got to walk the sidelines. In fact, I'm old enough, some people won't remember, but watch Jim Brown play. And I was actually on a sideline when he came out of a game one time. So I had all that experience. I went to an NCAA Division III school in Ohio, Mount Union. It was Mount Union College then. It's Mount Union University now, which a lot of people would know is a very, very great football program. However, they weren't very good in football when I was in school, but had a great collegiate track and field and cross country coach. And that just spurred my, I'm a sports geek. So that just spurred me to move on, to continue to want to coach for my career path.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. And I'm sure many people out there are like, wow, what an experience to be on the sidelines at those games. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was fun. And, growing up with sports, that's basically, I know a lot, and I'm a sports trivia geek. I think the history of every sport is important that kids know. And we talk about that a lot in our programs, because I think you need to know where everything you're teaching came from.
Great point. Great point. I'll kick it over to Coach Albert. What got you into this coaching profession?
Honestly, probably pretty similar. Both my parents were coaches. So I grew up in the gym, on the football field. At a young age, I was afforded an opportunity just from my parents having connections in at our high school with other coaches of, being a manager for some of the older teams when I was younger, and being in the locker room and just being around those relationships that are built off of the playing surface. Certainly didn't know after my playing career that I would jump headfirst into coaching, but was afforded another great opportunity, and certainly I've been divinely led into the seat I'm sitting in now.
What's great to hear in both of your stories, and I experience it every day with 3 little kids. Student athletes at the collegiate level are heroes to everybody, to all the little kids around them. And it's a family, ideally it's a family atmosphere. So, we raised 3 kids in the gym, and they look at these college athletes and like in awe, and I think that's such a special situation to be a college athlete at any level. You've got all those little eyes watching you, and, and the impact you can make. And I think being led by 2 very amazing coaches like yourself about what that really means, kind of holding that on your back. You're a student, you're an athlete, you're a role model all at the same time. And I think you're products of that, right? And I think it's awesome that you're really fostering that in the student athletes with which you work. So I think, thinking about over time, the hundreds of thousands of students that you've worked with and that you've coached, if you can think back to maybe one specific student athlete that you worked with that might be a shining star or a story you'd like to tell or a successful situation, for the audience to hear about maybe one specific student athlete that you'd like to talk about today. So Coach DeGraw, when you think about the years of coaching, is there one that stands out to you?
Yes, and it happened about 4 years ago. I had a young lady who was the 17th runner on her high school cross country team. No success whatsoever. I convinced her to, come to our junior college and run cross country, at least give it a try. Well, she worked hard enough and she eventually became our 5th runner, and we won the national championship that year. And it's something that she still talks about to this day, that it was the greatest moment in her life. And because in high school, being the 17th person on a high school cross country team, she was never really paid attention to, never really had opportunities. And especially at the JUCO level, I think that's a big thing. Every kid, no matter what their ability, has the opportunity. And you never know when that light switch may come on for somebody. It may not be in high school. It may be their freshman, junior, or even sophomore year of college. And all of a sudden, the old light switch goes on and they get it. And, all of a sudden she became important. She had no self-confidence because she was never told she was ever any good. Well, and getting that confidence, all of a sudden she started to excel in everything she did in her life. She went to school from Illinois. She went to a 4-year school in Florida and now works for Disney.
That is just awesome. And I think, for the high school counselors and athletic directors that are out there, or coaches that are listening in on this webinar, I think that's a key point that you made, Coach DeGraw, is the 17th runner on a cross country team. That was me, my senior year. No one pays attention to, or maybe they do pay attention, but they don't have those in-depth conversations about, well, would you like to run in college? That's kind of not even a discussion point for those student athletes. And I think
Correct.
If we can change that narrative today, I think we've done, great work, because that success, like, I got chills. She has a championship on her belt, like that, and to be able to put that on a resume and talk about it in job interviews, talk about grit, overcoming something. I think that's a huge, I always say that's an impactful interview story, because I didn't have confidence. I got some, I was able to run at the collegiate level, and now look at my championship. Like, that's tied in a bow, ready to be an employer.
And I tell them, that's something she will have for the rest of her life. I mean, college is an opportunity. No matter what level you play at, you better try it, no matter what your ability, because when it's over, it's gone forever.
That is just great. I'm going to put you on the spot. Was it amazing college coaching you provided there for her? Did you just need to talk to her a certain way? Did she peak athletically? What's that sweet sauce there?
Believe me, all my success is because of my student athletes. I've never ran, jumped, or thrown for anybody. And if I did, they wouldn't be very successful. Our teams wouldn't be very successful. No, it's about having somebody believe in them. I think the mental aspect is so much neglected in lower level collegiate sports. Division I has it, and I'm sure we'll get into some the mental health stuff. But I think that just believing in yourself and believing in the process that you go through, I think it's all self-confidence. We can all train. There is no magic to training. Everything is all between the ears.
Great takeaway. Coach Albert, how about you? Can you think back to the young men you've coached, and do you have one that we can listen to?
Yeah, first I would have been lower than 17 on my cross country team. I can promise you that.
We still would have given you a chance.
Well, maybe, but certainly I love stories like that. And in my short time, those impacts are life-changing, and they last a lifetime, and it's something that no one can ever take from you. I'll probably highlight more on the academic side of it. We just had a student athlete graduate this past year, played in, over 150 games here and started almost 90% of them, was an All-American, as many wins and accolades on his belt as you can think of on the floor. Also was our top engineer in our undergrad mechanical engineer program, got his master's in project management, and was afforded an opportunity to take an internship at Boeing at their headquarters out in Philly, and was offered a job, and now lives in Philadelphia, works in their helicopter department as an engineer. Certainly I love wins. We like to win. That's why we play sports, is to compete. Those stories, now that I'm on this side of it, as opposed to being a player, realizing how much more important, or how important those are and what goes into that. And Coach talked about the process. Having student athletes that are obsessed with the process and fall in love with it, fall in love with that monotony and the repetition, and staying consistent. And I think that when you can check all of those boxes, especially in the academic realm, sports prepare you for a lot of the adversity that you can't get anywhere else, that translates into a lot of those professional realms outside of sports. So that's probably one of my more proud moments. Don't get me wrong, I could go down the list of a lot of them, but that's what we're about. That's why we're here, and the ball is going to stop bouncing at some point. So what opportunity are we helping our young men or our student athletes create? And being able to provide for your family and start a family someday is at the top of that list.
I think that's a great point, Coach. When you talk about talking with student athletes about their experience, and so many times it's I played at, or I ran at, and I always say, no, you graduated from. That's also a sentence that you should say. And ideally that happened, and I think that's to think about the athletic successes and the academic successes. To have earned that degree, get the master's, go to Boeing. Those are really, I would say it's not about 4 years, it's about 40 years. It's not about 2 years. It's about, so you think about what their decisions were and the people that guided them in that way, and then where that can lead them. I think that's a great story for sure. I am sure you meet with hundreds of thousands of recruits. They come in your office or they're on the phone, and you probably have a little canned pitch that you might have. But I thought it would be great for the audience today to hear from each of you about, why junior college and why NAIA, specifically maybe your school or just the concept. But I think there's students and families, high school coaches, administrators out there who haven't heard the why junior college and why NAIA. And I think this is a great opportunity for you to give a recruiting speech to the hundreds that have logged on today. Coach DeGraw, tell me about JUCO. Why should I send my daughter to junior college?
I think the number one is opportunity. I talked before about you have the opportunity to come in, no matter if it's NCAA Division I, II, or III. And a lot of people, like you had mentioned when we were talking earlier, a lot of people don't realize that there are 3 levels at the junior college level. Division I can give full scholarships. Division II can give just tuition, no room and board. And Division III is no athletic scholarships, just like NCAA Division III. And pretty much, it mirrors the NCAA. So it's opportunity. You can come in and participate and play right away. You also have the opportunity to move on then to an NCAA school, no matter what level, but it gives you that bridge to become really good at your sport. And I think the one thing that a lot of junior colleges do, and I think our big pitch here at Joliet Junior College, is to have fun with it. It's not a job. you enjoy things that you have fun with. To have a job, you'll have that when you graduate from college for the rest of your life. You have to enjoy what you do. And when you enjoy it, you become better. I give the example, there's a local school right in our area, a 4-year school that you could go, you could live at home, go to that school, pay 20,000. It's an NCAA Division II school, pay $20,000 a year. And this is all before any aid. You could come to JJC where we're at, and this is for any sport. You're going to take the same classes basically your freshman year and pay $5,000. So you're basically right off the top, you're saving $15,000 and you're getting to participate. You have the chance to go to a national meet, a district championship, a regional championship, no matter what sport it is. And then, and we hold nobody here for 2 years. I recruit a lot of people. If you're good enough and you want to move on after 1 year to a 4-year school, I'll do everything I can to get you to that 4-year school. But again, it's a big bridge. You can go to a lot of 4-year schools, but will you play right away? And if you sit and only practice but never get to compete, especially in my sport, where you can compete at the national level right away as a freshman. And that is huge, because you're not like taking a gap year, because even though you're still in school, are you really improving as an athlete? Yes, 4-year schools will argue, because I was a 4-year school coach one time, and I've been on both sides of this talk. So now you have that opportunity to compete right away, get better, and make those memories. And if you become good enough, and again, the opportunity, not everybody wants to participate after 2 years at a JUCO, but our big spiel is try it, because this will never come your way again. And we've had, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but I've had so many people get away from the sport, say, no, I'm not going to have time, which you do in college. And then they don't participate. I get a phone call or a text, or they stop in my office, Coach, I miss it. Can I come out? And when that is over after 4 or 5 years of school, wherever you go, that opportunity is gone for the rest of your life.
I listening to that, I think about all those students who that used to be in my office and just say, like, I'm tired. This is hard. I said, think back. You loved this at one time. Like, remember the love of the game you had at one time. Like, did you lose it? And do we need to refine it? And I think that's the part where we know sports motivate student athletes, right? We know that, right? They're doing better academically when they're in season, because they've got that regimen. They have their day planned out. And I always say sports is that driver that can move them. And if they've got that love, they've got opportunity. Coach Degar, you said opportunity so many times, and that's important to keep that opportunity going. And junior college is definitely an option for them, for everyone. I think the other point that I would love to insert before we kick it to Coach Albert, something that you mentioned also, Coach Degar, that you don't keep them there. You're not holding them. You have to stay for 2 years. And that's something that I think, if anyone's listening, junior college right out of high school is an option for everyone. It could potentially be that situation where students are not academically eligible for NCAA Division I, NCAA Division II, or NAIA. JUCO becomes the option. And I think that's important. Our Honest Game report shows academic eligibility across all platforms. And so students can see, oh, shoot, well, I'm not Division I eligible, so I can't play college sports. That's not the case at all. You can go on, continue at a junior college, and then, as you spoke about, move on after that. But I think that's really to keep in mind that it's definitely providing that opportunity and continuing that experience. So
I think one of the big misnomers about junior colleges, and this is from the history of schools, people go to junior college because they can't go to a 4-year school. That's totally wrong. I can come here. JJC is the oldest public junior college in the United States. We were the first one in the country for a public junior college. You will take the, like I said, the same classes here and they will all transfer. And now in this day and time when money is huge, you know, like I mentioned before, $151 a credit out compared to, look at what four-year schools do. And I have 4.0 students here. Our nursing program is one of the best nursing programs in the state of Illinois, regardless of schools. So everybody needs to not just say, well, I go to a junior college because I can't get into a four-year school. That is totally wrong. It's about saving money, the opportunities that you have. And like I said before, you can always move on.
Great point. So Coach Albert, my son and I are in your office. Tell me about NAIA, why NAIA colleges for us?
You know, I think what we sell all of our student athletes or all of our potential recruits, especially when we're building that initial relationship and the foundation of what that, recruiting process is going to look like. Certainly we're going to sell big picture. We're going to sell, the fact that we've been fortunate to have some really good players and have success, because let's be honest, that's a driving force in the recruiting field. But we're also going to sell the other two big proponents for us, and that's the academic side of it. How we plan out our four-year student athletes, sometimes five if they redshirt early on, what their academic progress is going to look like, how we help with internships and all of those things that go into the academic side. And then the biggest piece of that is willing to sacrifice and buy into a family atmosphere. Every player that we have, that comes in, they want to play. And I get it. I was in their shoes at one time and understand that a majority of the young men in our case that we recruit are the best players on their team and certainly the best players in their area. And that's just kind of been their perspective their entire sports career. So selling that big picture, understanding that we want student athletes that want to be here. We want student athletes that want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. And those are the relationships, the ones that do make the sacrifice, because whether you're scoring 25 a game or 0 a game, sacrifice is going to come one way or the other. And we can't tell you when, can't tell you how, can't tell you what. We just have to understand that the young men that we bring in are all on that same page and are willing to, give up some of that for the betterment of everyone else, because your success is our success. That's how it works. So the big picture is certainly the large portion of it. Nowadays, especially with the tight-knit group that we have, we recruit the families too. They're, whatever family that they're a part of or whatever their upbringing is, we recruit everybody that's part of them, because that's how we make up the larger scale of what our warrior family is. It's not just about us 21, it's the additional part that comes with that. So we're recruiting everyone, and the biggest thing for us is to just be honest. I think that's the most important part to that in building those relationships, and especially that initial foundation that you're building with that family.
Great to hear. I would send my son right there after that recruiting speech. That's it. And the family, I think that's really, it's not about this 21. That's really important for them to hear. I also think it kind of pivots right into the next question that I actually had, was when you talk about numbers. We had a chat that came in, a question to the chat that said, what's the difference between the NCAA and the NAIA? And, we didn't kind of touch on that, but I think I'm going to answer it in this way, that, the NCAA is a conglomerate of colleges and universities out there with a governing body for the NCAA having 3 divisions, Division I, II, and III. The NAIA are another set of four-year colleges governed by another body that have their own set of rules. And so, many times I would say they don't get as much love as they deserve, but it's just another way to group colleges. The NAIA has a set of colleges, and then the NCAA has a set of colleges. And so that's the difference there, which leads into opportunity in terms of legislation, rules, and numbers. You said in your before, it's not about this 21. My mind automatically perked to, wait, Division I NCAA men's basketball is 13 full scholarships, sometimes 15 roster spots, right? So we kind of roll right into, there are larger rosters at many other schools that are not NCAA Division I and Division II. And that 17th runner in the high school, Coach DeGraw, that you spoke about, might not have had a roster spot at a Division I or Division II school. And so, thinking about a basketball player out there who's thinking NAIA, or JUCO, either way, there's more opportunity in terms of butts and seats, right? There's more jerseys to be given out. There's more, race times. There's all of that. So I think if we can talk a little bit about numbers and sports offered and opportunity in terms of playing, if we could kind of touch on that a little bit. I always say, like, do you want to start and play, or would you like to just be on a roster and never get sweaty? So Coach Albert, if you can talk a little bit about that, that you've got 21 guys that are going to get opportunity.
And actually we have closer to 40.
Okay.
Because we have a developmental team as well. That, serves somewhat similar to, a junior college in the sense that we're going to develop them, allow them to continue with their academic progress and play the game that they love on a different scale, while continuing to do the same. And, from a scholarship standpoint, we tell all of our recruits, we want our student athletes to leave and have to climb an anthill, not a mountain. From a debt perspective, I went to a private school that is pretty expensive, and so I completely understand the differences in scholarships, and we have a lot of different scholarships. We have full scholarships, we have partial scholarships, and we try to divvy that out. Obviously what's best for, our success on the court, but also, our success in the academic realm and off the court. And once they leave and graduate, they're not making mortgage payments on student debt. They're in a position where they can, start to harvest some of that hard work and sacrifice that they put in for 4 or 5 years. And then previous to that, and kind of enjoy and reap some of those benefits.
Coach DeGraw, anything else to add about that? Just numerous opportunity in terms of larger rosters at the junior college level.
Yeah, most of our sports here, no matter what the sport, we don't have roster limits. If you want to participate, you can participate. Now, that gives you the opportunity. Doesn't mean, like in basketball, you're going to start or play, but at least you're on the team. And if, a 4-year school or somewhere, you may not even get that opportunity. But at the junior college ranks, you have, I would like to say, many more opportunities to participate. And, if you achieve something at the junior college level, it's great. It's, I have a lot of All-American certificates hanging on my wall, and they look the same as if you went to the University of Nebraska and were a track and field All-American. They're the same certificate, and these are memories that you can have for the rest of your life.
Great point. Great point. We've hit a lot of differences about, NCAA, junior college, NAIA. Is there any, misnomer about your experience in that level? Any misnomer about JUCO that we haven't touched on, or any misnomer about NAIA that we haven't touched on that you want to make sure the audience hears? I want you to know that, NAIA is not this, or we are this. So Coach Albert, why don't we kick it to you? And any misnomer that you have to keep battling all the time?
I would say the first one would be the scholarship part, but the second one, probably hits home more on a personal level, is the overall level of play. I think that it's a misconception as far as what level NAIA is. And listen, you can't, certainly Division I, and when you get into some of those Power Fives and some of the mid majors, I mean, certainly the discrepancy is there. When you talk about Division II, NAIA, Division III, and we're not naive to that. I also have a lot of friends that are Division I and Division II coaches that won't give us any bye games. So there's certainly a reason for that. Certainly not saying that we would go beat anybody, but the level of play is much higher. I tell my players all the time that I played on a national championship team in 2011, my senior year at Cornerstone, And there's a really good chance I wouldn't recruit myself nowadays. That's just the reality of it, and how, how quickly that, that needle has moved. And a lot of it has to do with, the transfer portal, but also, COVID had a little part of that as far as the high school recruiting aspect and some of the trickle down effect. And I would say the level of play, the best way for us to, I guess maybe humble is the best way, or maybe enlighten and educate, is to have someone that we're recruiting that maybe thinks that they're at a higher level come to a practice or a game. That's usually the best way to educate some of our current recruits. Seeing it firsthand is the best way, no doubt about that.
And I think, having watched a lot of basketball in my time, professionally and personally, I would echo that from almost from a fan perspective too. That there's some good basketball out there, and then there's some not so great at various levels and so on. And I think you would go and you'd recruit yourself. I think but you could I'm sure I could name a few that you would go on and give a good run for money, if not get a win. But they won't speak you'll buy game, because then that would cost money.
Well, you can pass it on to Coach Ricard that we would love a buy game.
All right, I will let him know the minute he comes home tonight. Coach DeGraw, how about you? Any misnomer that you want to make sure the audience hears that you don't have to explain one more time about JUCO?
Well, I think the big thing we touched on before was that junior college is for anyone. It's just not the people who can't get into a four-year school. I think that's the biggest. But I think another one is, at the junior college level, you have the opportunity to do multiple sports. We have a lot of multiple sport athletes in our program. They can do, soccer. We've even had soccer cross-country people, and not only here, but you see that a lot in the JUCO ranks around the country, soccer and cross-country in the same season. Because again, we don't want to make kids choose, because they may like both. And you could do basketball and track. It's not that when their season's over, they can come do track for us. It's much more like they used to do in high school, where, you go big time, Division I, sometimes Division II, you have to make a choice, because the coach doesn't, or that program doesn't want to share your ability with another program. They want to make you be the best you can be in that sport. Where here you have that opportunity. And another quick story, we had a girl who played soccer here for 2 years. The soccer coach came to me and said, "Jeff, Tiffany's a very fast runner." And I saw her on the soccer field, and I'm thinking, okay, running is different in cross country than on a soccer field. Well, she lost one race to an NCAA Division III runner in 2 years, was national champ, and was our leader in that national championship team. And she participated in both sports. There was a girl who beat her next year, who also played soccer at a Division III JUCO in Georgia. So it can be done. And sometimes you don't like to give the kids that ultimate choice. Which are you going to do? You can do that at the junior college level.
That's definitely a huge point. I think that, the audience can hear about too, is that multiple sport student athlete experience may not be an opportunity at many Division I schools. And I think that's important too. Kids have to decide, when they're younger, what am I going to do? And I would play everything. If you can play everything,
yeah.
Don't pick a sport for your 7-year-old and make that like life decision. And so all of a sudden, they get to high school, and then in their mind, like, well, I have to choose. You don't have to choose, actually. You can play more than one at the collegiate level. And let's talk about all the other opportunity and places you can. I think that's important. It leads me to another point that I would like to talk about is, the day in and day out life of a junior college student athlete and an NAIA student athlete. In my experience at 2 Division I schools, sit down and you talk with recruits, what do you want to major in? What do you want to do? And there's a lot of times where you would have to say, yeah, it's going to be really hard to be a Division I athlete and be a nursing major, because your entire junior year, you're in the field at a hospital from, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You're going to miss practice. You can't travel to meets. And it would pain me, but that would be a really hard conversation of, you can be a nurse one day. I'm not saying you can't, but you can't get a bachelor's of science in nursing right now and compete in the sport you love. And that's hard. And I think I'd love to talk a little bit about that, about, you talked about an internship and going to Boeing. You talked about being able to be on campus clubs and being actively involved in things. I'd love you to touch on a little bit that it might not be as restricting in choice of major, being involved on campus, summer internships. Talk a little bit about that at your level. Coach Albert, maybe we'll start with you about the other parts of being a college kid. How does that look?
And that's a great point. And one thing that we do at Indiana Tech is you're required to have 2 internships during your undergrad. We think that hands-on experience is really important, especially when you're making, a lifetime decision, when you're deciding what your major is going to be. But certainly we can't preach academics if we're not going to support academics. So I think that making sure that we're flexible with schedules. Now, I would say certainly it's not quote unquote a job like an NCAA Division I, where you have a very structured schedule. You're here at this time, you're there, then you're going from this to that. We definitely have a few more gaps. But when I revert back to my time in college, I think about my personal experiences with other students, with student life, having a life outside of basketball, and everything is tied to that here. Your academics, your weights, your extra workouts, outside of practice, and individuals with coaches or managers. Certainly a little bit more flexibility. We think that life outside of sports is really important. And I think that a lot of that has to do with, the nature of an athlete getting burnt out. When it becomes that, doesn't matter how much joy they had in the past, or what successes have led them to the experience that they're, in right now. If you can't truly enjoy that with your, entire lifestyle, which is having friends outside of basketball and being able to do some things on the weekends. And now, don't get me wrong, we ask a lot of them, and we do that simply from the standpoint of this is what's preparing them for life after college as well. We try to tell them, your stressors now are heavy, and your stressors after college are very different. And so definitely that life outside of basketball balance is really important. So our schedules are a little different. It's more of a smaller scale of a Division I, Division II, no doubt.
Well, Coach DeGraw, can you talk a little bit about the experience of just being a kid in college at a JUCO?
Well, again, that goes back to one of our points. You have to have fun and enjoy everything you do. We practice both cross country and track. We practice in the morning, and then they have the rest of their day to themselves. Now, obviously, they got to go to class, but a lot of people have to realize that in college, it's different than high school. You don't have to be in a building all day. You could have, and college is not classes all day. You could have a class on Tuesday and Thursday at 10 and noon. That's all you have that day. You have the rest of the day. And I talk to my recruits a lot about get your homework done during the day, because at night when you go home, you don't want to have to do work because you're tired. We have lounges here in our area. We have the library. People go. It's not, like Coach Albert says, we expect a lot out of everybody and we work hard. But again, you have to have fun and they have to have time. I don't want to see them 24/7 and they don't want to see me 24/7. Okay. You need a break. It's much like, and I'm sure a lot of people out there are married. You get tired of seeing your spouse 24/7. It doesn't work. Okay. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. And it's the same way with, athletes. They need you, you need them, but you also have to have a break. Okay. They have other lives than track and cross country. And I think if you put too much emphasis on that, then that's when it becomes a job and they get discouraged and, they get burnt out. So there has to be that medium, and that's something that is worked on all the time.
Great points. We had a question come in the chat when I was talking about majors and choosing your major versus your sport, or could you do both? And one of the questions was, can you talk about the academic support that might be available at those levels? In my professional experience, that's what I did all day. I oversaw the academic advisors. You had to come to tutoring, you had to come to study hall. This was not a question. Can you talk about, maybe put your hat on of, I'm speaking for junior colleges and I'm speaking for NAIA outside of your institution. Can you speak about the support in academics for the student athletes? If they're going to choose the NAIA route or choose the JUCO route, what is the support there for their academics? Coach Albert, we'll kick it to you first.
We do a really good job. We have an office here, the Office of Student Success, that provides many opportunities for our student athletes from an academic standpoint. Whether it be individual tutoring, whether it be study table hours that you can check in and out of. We have a writing center here where you can actually, take your work and have somebody walk you through it if you're having a hard time understanding a certain format or whatever it may be. And from a personal standpoint, I am their academic advisor. I check all of their schedules. I'm on top of all of their program evals. We map out all of their classes ahead of time, when certain things are added or when certain classes are available, especially when you get to some of those finite classes, to where you have to take it for a semester. Otherwise, it's not available till next year. Just mapping a lot of those things out. I do academic grade checks twice a week. Today, what is today? Thursday? Yes, today's one of those days. So we have a grade check today. Attendance checks, we do all of that. And our study tables I leave it up to them. If your GPA is a certain number, we're not going to require study table. They're obviously taking that time management and responsibility on themselves to make sure that they're taking care of the classroom. And then we kind of monitor those things throughout the semester. And that's part of growing up, I think. We don't want to have to influence that. We certainly will. But we've done a really good job, and my staff has done a really good job of bringing in high academic student athletes that, really push that envelope as the same, as they would on the court too, just making themselves uncomfortable. And that's part of the process that goes into the off-court development.
How about Coach DeGraw? Are there academic support for student athletes at the JUCO level?
Yes, every school is different. Here at JJC, we have 2 full-time academic advisors who you cannot drop, add, do anything academically without their permission. You can't go drop a class because you have an athletic hold on your account. You can't do anything if you're an athlete without them knowing about it. They are here, they're full-time. They take care of all of our athletes, scheduling. If you need a tutor, if a student doesn't want to go in and see them, they can come to their coach and we go talk to that person, because sometimes kids, they don't want to, or they'll go to the academic advisor without telling the coach, because then they'll think they're going to get in trouble. We are all here to help them, and we're all in the same building. So there's constant communication between coaches, academic people, student athletes, access to computers, printers, everything. And I can only speak to what we have here at JJC, but I'm sure, because we get those students, we want them to succeed, much like when I was at a 4-year school. Coaches keep an eye on everybody on their team. We don't want ineligible athletes. That just doesn't serve anybody any good.
Great point. The chat is kind of on fire and some of the direct messages coming in about this recruiting. So I want to be cognizant of time and pivot for just a little bit. There's a lot of questioning about being eligible for JUCO and NAIA, and what does that look like, and how do I get recruited? And so if I'm a high school student out there, or if I'm an athletic director, high school counselor, parent, what are your suggestions for students to get seen? What can they be doing to get on your radar as potential student athletes to come and join your roster? So Coach Albert, what do you tell high school kids? How do I get seen so I get recruited or so I land on a roster?
Yeah, I mean, I went through all my recruiting videos this morning and I see my email and over here lighting up still. I probably get 40-ish videos a day from recruiting profile and services. I try to watch every single one, but we are on the road a ton. Word of mouth, friends in the industry that, maybe see somebody, AAU events in the summer. I mean, that life, it's every weekend pretty much in April, May, and July. And, we're all over the Midwest where our reach isn't quite as far as, a Division I and some high level Division IIs from a budget standpoint. It's a little more difficult for us to hop on a plane and go out west or to Florida to try and pull a kid in, but we are all over the place. We're open to any information. We've tried to watch and review everything as thoroughly as we can. Those have been some of our more special student athletes, just from, like Coach talked about earlier, having having someone that's maybe under the radar a little bit that has a little bit of that promise. So we kind of have a large range, and then it comes down to some of the more intricate things, but certainly that surface level is the videos and communication source.
Great. We have a few of those kind of tidbits on our website about how to email a college coach, how to do those reaching out. So would you agree that yes, you'd love to hear from them rather than you have to go find them?
I would love to. I mean, we're going to try and find them anyway, but it takes out a step or two when I can click on that video on my email. So I'd certainly love to get as much information as we can.
Great. Okay. How about Coach DeGraw? What can I do to get seen and land playing running for you?
Well, see, we're in a little different situation. I don't necessarily, and it's hard to travel all over the country to see track and field and cross country people. We're in a different situation. All I got to do is look at times and performances. So that's easy. But I notice on here, and I may get in trouble a little bit with this, but a lot of people are asking about, recruiting services. Okay. I've been a part of both. I've over all my years of college coaching, I've received, and I check those all the time. And I've received athletes because of those. But the initiative that you can do as an individual to save yourself the money, there's certain, I'll go on and see some of these people and I'll email them, text them, whatever. Before it wasn't text, but now you got to text everybody. So, and they'll say, well, no, that's too far away. Well, then you need to put that in. But if kids can sit down and where they want to go to school and text, email, somehow get in touch with the coach, that's all you're paying these companies to do. Now, I use the companies. However, you can save yourself money if, you take a night a week. Okay, these are the schools. I have to do some research on how to get a hold of these people. Text the coaches. We love, like Coach Albert says, that means more to us than us going out. If you're interested in our school, you have the opportunity here. We want you, but we don't necessarily know about you. If the girl who was the 17th member of her team wouldn't have reached out to me, I would have never have known about her.
Right. So, I think that's such a great point too about take a night a week. Here at Honest Game, when we talk to students about that college fit, we're going to be athletically, academically, socially, find 20 reach schools, 20 good schools, 20 safe schools, and just sit down, take a night a week, email each coach, be personal.
Yes.
I joke, my husband would get so excited if someone reached out to him instead of having to do the work himself. love him, but he's lazy. Take the work off the coach's plate and land in their inbox. And I think that's such a great point. I'm glad you mentioned that, Coach DeGraw, because the students themselves can be reaching out to you. That means more. That's more impactful.
And don't feel bad about, oh, maybe I'm not good enough. Everybody has a place at the next level. You know, it may not be, you know, you may be there thinking you're a Division I athlete. You know, we have to have some type of reality at some point, and you need to, you know, continue. If you want to play, there's a place for you, whether it's play, run, whatever sport you do, there is a place for you to continue at the next level.
Great points. Before we wrap up, and I just want to be cognizant of time, we did have, as I said, some questions about, you know, being eligible and what are the options. So I thought in just to touch really briefly, as I mentioned, every level of college sports has a different requirement set for academics. And so the Division I, II, and III in the NCAA umbrella, right? Specifically, this is not the JUCO umbrella that Coach DeGraw was talking about, JUCO Division I, II, III, but this is for your college's NCAA Division I, II, and III. They're looking at specific courses you're taking, course titles on your transcript. You need a 2.3 for the Division I level in 16 core courses. You need a 2.2 at the Division II level in 16 core courses. NCAA does not care about your career class or your physical education class. They are looking at 16 specific classes. The Division III at the NCAA do not have any eligibility requirements in terms of the academics, but you have to be admissible to the college. Now, that's very different from the NAIA schools. So there's a whole different set of parameters for the NAIA. You need a 2.3 minimum overall GPA. So the NAIA is looking at school GPA. They're including everything, but the NCAA is just looking at 16 specific courses. Here, if you've got the 2.3, we're okay. But if not, you've got to meet two of these three. And I think the biggest distinction in the last couple of years is NCAA does not look at your test scores anymore. They do not care about your SAT or ACT to get academically eligible. Admissions is potentially, but not academically eligible. And NAIA would love those scores if you don't have that GPA. And so it's important to know, you know, what each of those requirements are, and that you're ready to go for all the levels. And so I think just to wrap it up, you know, as we close, I'm so happy that we've had such great engagement. If we didn't get to your questions, we promise someone will reach out and let you know those answers. But to kind of put a bow on today, I'd love Coach Albert, Coach DeGraw, just to kind of, you know, round out all of our opportunities, all of our conversations today. Anything you just like to say to those parents and families out there, or high school coaches, athletic directors, and counselors that are working with these students every day? What's one tidbit or one thing you'd like them to walk away as they close out this webinar today? Coach Albert.
I would say, you know, there's plenty of opportunity out there, you know, and certainly a lot of perception and social media engagement and all of the things that are painted pretty around us are goals for all student athletes, especially younger ones. But helping them find a little bit of that maturation and understanding that there's a lot more out there, and certainly can present opportunities to really take that first big step in your life, and all levels are important into playing into that future for sure.
Thank you. Coach DeGraw, any last minute words from you?
There's always the opportunity, even if you go away, and especially we don't hear about it, you know, the 4-year coaches, especially NAIA or JUCOs, high school people hear more about it. A kid goes away to a school, is not happy. There are other options. You don't have to stay at that school and be miserable. You can go to a junior college. You can go to an NAIA school. You could go to an NCAA Division III school. You have to be happy where you're at. You don't want to be miserable while you're in college. And again, take advantage of the opportunities that are there for you.
We didn't even we didn't touch the transfer portal in this hour of amazing talk, but I think that's a huge point to land on. Hopefully people listening out there, it might not just be high school students. We could be hearing from current college students who are not happy. And there's a place to love your sport, to graduate, get an education, and have fun. And so if you're thinking about leaving the current state that you're in and the current college that you're at, definitely JUCO and NAIA could be the way to go. So I can't thank you both enough. The hour went so fast, but it was such a great conversation. I appreciate your time. I know you're very busy, and thank you, coaches, for jumping on. Thank you, NIAAA, for co-sponsoring this event today. I look forward to having this conversation again. Maybe we have a follow-up, but appreciate your time and have a great day.